second Methane Monday this year. We are very proud together, energy community and GIE and Marcogas, that we can run this for the third year and that there are still interesting topic to be presented. Today we have with us Vice President of OGCI, Oil and Gas Climate Initiative, Vice President for Strategy and Policy, but Mr. Perez will, will tell more about himself just in a few seconds. And actually, we are very happy that we can present and that OGCI can present really big achievements from the last year. So, Mr. Perez, floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Carolina. And I'm very, very happy to be with all of you today. It's a great pleasure and great honor as well. And as Carolina introduced, I'm the Vice President Strategy and Policy for OGCI. And just as a background for all of you to know a little bit more about me. So I've worked in the climate and energy space for nearly 20 years now for various types of organizations. Consulting, where I was mainly working for the World Bank and the UN and government as well, but also for the private sector for various type of companies and from the energy or the bank, but how to decarbonize their energy investment portfolio sourcing, depending on who I was interacting with. And then I worked a little bit as well for the industry with Total Energy for a couple of years just before the COP21, and that was actually the initial discussion that we had about what could the industry do together to move the needle a little bit more faster when it comes to the transition, and that was the foundation discussion about OGCI that was launched at the UN Climate Summit in 2014. And since then, I've been around the organization and now inside the organization for nearly 5 years. And trying to run this coalition of players. So I'm going to start to share my screen, which hopefully will work. So let me know if it's not the case. So let me just go back to the first slide. Oops. Let me see. Okay, if I share this screen and then move full screen. Okay, can you see the slides?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, okay, fantastic.
Yes, all okay.
Okay, great. So you'll see on this slide that we have a certain number of member companies within OGCI. The logos are on the bottom of the slides. So OGCI's role is to we define ourselves as a catalyst for change. So our job as the entity of OGCI is to identify opportunities for the industry to decarbonize, either on their scope 1 and 2, as well as on their scope 3, or how they could decarbonize the service that they give to the global world in terms of energy delivery. And so that goes from, again, looking at energy efficiency, methane, obviously, which will be the focus on the discussion today. But also just globally speaking, scope 1 and 2, how they can reduce their scope 1 and 2 on their operation and on the non-operated domain. And on the scope 3 side, so outside of their own control perimeter, how they can engage to develop a new solution, and namely, for instance, carbon capture and storage or hydrogen. So a little bit more about OGCI. So as I mentioned before, it has been launched at the UN Climate Summit in September 2014. It's a CEO-led initiative, so that means that we engage the CEO of the member companies of OGCI on a quarterly basis. But of course, we don't work only with the CEOs. We work as well with a lot with the team that are inside each of the companies. They're experts on very specific topics that we want to address. But as well as their executives to move things a little bit faster, because we know that the higher you hit the company, the quickest you can implement a decision. And so our agenda is focused on where, as a coalition, we feel that we can be additional compared to what the member companies of OGCI or what the industry is already engaging, or where there are other players already engaging, and where the climate agenda is not yet tackling the topic at a sufficient pace or scale. So that's why we really focus and laser focus our agenda on very specific matters. We can't embrace the full topic. We don't have the capacity to do that, but we definitely focus on where we can bring additionality. So methane is obviously one of those topics that we have in our agenda since 2014 as one of our priority topics. But also carbon capture and storage is a big one. On the transport, we mainly look at the heavy duty vehicle and the marine transport, as well as a little bit on aviation. So we don't look at the light duty, for instance, because we feel that there's already a lot of people and a lot of organization looking at that. We also look at the energy efficiency, as I mentioned before, as a topic on how we can accelerate the more energy efficient solution across the industry. What is called the low emission opportunities on our side is more like the a strategic think tank, looking at topics that could have an influence on the climate change, such as carbon pricing, for instance, or energy modeling. And the natural climate solution is another areas on which we engage the industry, how you use carbon credit, what are the projects that are considered of high quality, how you can increase the supply of a natural-based solution, for instance, how the industry could help countries to accelerate their agenda on providing credits. So you can see, for instance, that we don't address renewable energy. It's not because we don't believe that renewable energy will be part of the solution, but probably because we believe too much that renewable energy is going to be part of the solution. And so it's a space of competition within the companies. And we are also limited by what we can do by antitrust regulation, obviously. And so, and again, as I mentioned before, there's probably little additionality for a coalition like OGCI to work on renewable energy, because it's a commodity market now, and it's going to scale up anyway. So which is of course a very good thing. And in 2017, we launched, so 3 years after the inception of OGCI, we launched what we call Climate Investment, which is an investment firm. So the member companies of OGCI have put aside a set of money, which come up to be 1 billion collectively. And this fund, this investment firm has a fund that is investing into startups and solutions that are at commercial deployment scale, and address the similar type of topic that the one that we try to address as OGCI, so methane, energy efficiency, transport, and so on. And the fund is run independently from the organization. It has its own decision process and its own board, etc. But the technology that are identified and pushed by the fund could also be used as well by the industry and by our members if they wish to. So in terms of, oops, sorry, just give me 1 second. Oh. I just have a little issue with my screen sharing. Just need to move something up. There we go. Sorry for this little interruption.
It seems they with strange things in our space.
Yeah, indeed, it is a little bit sorry, it's a little bit bumpy because my connection is a little bit poor as well on my side. I don't know what's happening today. Okay.
Don't worry, we have enough time, so please.
Yeah, okay. I'm just trying to share it again, but it looks like okay, now you should see the screen again, and let me pull the slides. Okay, is it working again?
Yes, slides are back.
Okay, sorry for that. So in terms of the context, so probably most of you are familiar with this slide, but just as a matter of a recap, so there is a very clear scientific consensus about the importance of reducing methane emissions, even if it has been somehow a topic that's, I've been, again, working in this space for 20 years now. I can tell you that 20 years back, methane was not a topic that was discussed because it was not identified as a priority one. But clearly today, there is a scientific consensus that it's absolutely critical to reduce methane emissions. And, the regular IPCC reports that came out remind that Methane has caused probably a third of the global temperature rise that we observe today, and that the methane emission determines the speed of change threatening the planet. So in Glasgow, so 1.5 years ago, there was the signature of what was called the Global Methane Pledge, which has been signed up by more than 150 countries now. And the idea is to call for a reduction of methane emission by 30% compared to 2020 by 2030. But this is for all anthropogenic sources. It's not only about oil and gas. It's like other methane emissions as well are included into this. So the methane coming from coal or from landfill or from agriculture and so on. And this has been identified as one of the biggest and the quickest win that the world could achieve when it comes to climate change, because, for instance, the IEA has made some calculation that if the world was to achieve the global methane pledge, so 30% reduction of methane 2020 to 2030, that could have a similar impact as decarbonizing the entire transport sector. So all the cars, the planes, the buses, the boats, and so on. So the size of the prize is absolutely tremendous when it comes to methane, because it has a very strong global warming potential, much bigger than the CO2, but also because it has a shorter lifetime. So the more you reduce the flow of methane emission, you can have an impact on the stock of methane emission that is in the atmosphere. On the contrary to CO2 emission, which has a very long lifespan. So of course we need to address the CO2 emission. It's not one or the other, but it's just the message is to say, there's been too little attention given to methane, while today we know that we have the solution to address it in a very, very meaningful manner and in a very short time frame. And I will come back on that later on. And it happens that the oil and gas industry is contributing to 20% of the man-made methane emissions. So if the oil and gas industry was to reduce its methane emission to close to zero, that would give some times to other sectors that doesn't have necessarily either the financial capacity or the coordination capacity or just the access to technology to address their methane emissions. And if the oil and gas sector was to address entirely its methane emission, that would achieve 2/3 of the global methane pledge. So to put another equivalent in mind of the people is that this is based on IPCC calculations. The IPCC believes that eliminating methane emission from the oil and gas sector would have a larger impact than all the new electric vehicles worldwide by 2030. So again, it's a tremendous options that the world has, and that this industry could contribute toward the climate challenge. So it could reposition as well, more or less, the oil and gas industry as part of a provider of solutions, rather than being a source of issue. So what we have done so far, so this is just an illustration of some activity that we have conducted within OGCI. It's quite a long list because we have collaborated with a number of players like the United Nations Environmental Programme, Imperial College, the World Bank, or Environmental Defense Fund. We've set up, like the first joint KPIs on methane, as well as an intensity target, which was progressively reduced to well below 0.2%, which is our current target. So maintaining the methane intensity of the upstream activity of OGCI member companies below 0.2%, and this is calculated all the methane emission from the upstream activity divided by the quantity of gas that is reaching the market. And this has been reused after that by a number of entity. Environmental Defense Fund has used it, but also the US EPA in the Inflation Reduction Act has enacted the fact that this threshold is considered as the best practice. We worked as well with UNEP in developing the reporting framework, joint reporting framework, and then they expand that to become the OGMP 2.0, and this is now signed up by a number of companies working with the methane gating principle and so on. But another area, I think, that where we have demonstrated that the collective action makes sense is that when we set this target, this intensity target, initially, of course, when you set an intensity target, you get critics because people believe that, okay, but an intensity does not reduce the absolute emission. We have observed the contrary. We've set this intensity targets because at the OGCI level, it was making sense as a coalition to say that the global quantity of gas that will be delivered to the market across 12 companies will probably be roughly, steady for the next 5 years. because some companies may reduce their gas production, but some company will probably increase. So overall, if you apply on an intensity, you would have a consequence on the absolute. And this has proven to be true because since the launch of this target, and that has triggered some incentives and some actions within the companies, we have reduced, I mean, we have seen that our member companies have reduced their operated upstream methane emission by 40% on an absolute basis between 2021 and 2017. So that's quite a huge reduction. And they were already starting from a low point. So the marginal abatement cost for them were higher than probably most of the players within the industry. And this is equivalent to 20 million tons of CO2 equivalent abated per year, which is obviously a very big number. So when it comes to the other type of activity that we have, so we have a satellite program. I will come on that later on, but what you see on the right-hand side is an observation from a satellite on a methane plume. So OGCI is invested in some technology, including on satellite, and we're using those satellites to inform local operator on their methane leakage and to engage positively with them. It's not a name and shame exercise. We are not here to, push things in the public domain to get an article in any newspaper. It's not the idea, because we don't believe that this is an efficient way to collaborate, but rather we identify those methane plumes and we create a peer-to-peer relationship through the member companies. We can engage with the local operator, who could be a local NOC, for instance, I don't know, the national companies in Iraq, who has a specific asset in a specific location. We try to find the right person to engage with, and then we contact them and inform them about their methane leakage. In many cases, actually, it's not a lack of willingness to act. I mean, people, when they know that they have an issue and they want to run their facility properly, actually, resolve the issue by themselves. In some cases, it could be just operational improvement, but it's mainly a lack of awareness that we have observed in many cases. I'll come back on the Iraq paper right after this a couple of slides. So the observation that we've made in Iraq were quite instructive, because we launched this campaign in 2021. So we've covered a number of assets, and some of them actually came with a plume that was up to 5 tons of methane per hour. So it's of course huge. It was the equivalent, just one plume was the equivalent of the methane emission of one European major, for instance. So obviously that was a very low cost, in terms of mitigation action, the marginal abatement cost was below $1 per ton, when you just have to detect and inform that there is an issue, and then the issue could be resolved by operational improvement. And the operational improvement from time to time was to reroute the gas internally to the facility or to lead the flare. So of course you could say, well, you don't resolve entirely the climate issue, because you're just moving from methane to CO2 by lighting a flare, but still better from a global warming potential. So in many cases, that was there was a lot of situation where we realized that just by information sharing was enough to resolve a very, very big climate issue. And since the satellites, observe the same facility at least once a week, if not twice a week, you could see when the action has happened. And in many cases, it happens very, very fast once the information was shared. So we were quite, positive about this program that we've launched. We're probably we have extended that to other regions. We're doing it in 3 other countries: Algeria, Kazakhstan, and Egypt. And again, the idea is really for us not to be a name and shame, but to take a practical and tangible actions to reduce methane emissions, to demonstrate as well that satellite-based detection technology can be used in an integrated part of the leakage detection campaign, detection and repair campaign, sorry, LDAR. And that's the third objective for us, is to provide additional information to external stakeholders to further support the effort to minimize methane emission. Because then what we can do, and again, since we are not in a name and shame exercise, we can aggregate those results at basin or at the regional or country level and share this information to whoever needs it in terms of its calculation. So it could be the UN, it could be the IPCC. I mean, whoever wants to get this type of anonymized version, we are happy to share that. So again, we started this program, I think something like Q2 2021, In Q4 2021, we extended that over Algeria, Kazakhstan, and Egypt. And we continue to engage and to test the solution by having this peer-to-peer relationship. The outcome again has been very positive in terms of impact, and we're quite confident that this type of solution could help a lot the industry to reduce its methane emissions. So satellite is not neither the silver bullet. It works very well in some specific situation where you have the capacity to, first of all, to have the very precise geographical coordinates of a facility, where you can correct the weather data, because once you have detected the plume, if I go back, well, the slides was showing the plumes. If you you have to correct the weather data, so how the wind was blowing, what was the sun, albedo effect, etc. You integrate that into your algorithm to be able to locate where is the source point, because of course the plume is moving with the wind direction. And also, when you have cloud coverage, obviously, you don't see anything with the satellite. So satellite is a very good tool in many cases, but it's not the only silver bullet. And there is a number of other technology that needs to be implemented. So that's one thing that we have done through the climate investment firm, is to invest into multiple set of technologies. So here you can see the different technology that we are deploying and developing across the world, thanks to our fund. Some of them are used by our member companies, and some of them are used by the rest of the industry, obviously. So you have the satellite on the left, and then the more you move to the right, you're getting more precise in terms of measurement and detection, but also in terms of mitigation. So using a satellite in combination with planes, in combination with drones, plus on the ground measurements, give you like the best combination of solutions. But you won't do that on every single case. It depends on where you are located, the age of the assets, the technology available in the country where you operate, and also the frequency of the measurement has to be designed in a way that it's fits for your needs. It doesn't have to be the exact same recipe for every single assets. But what we have observed today, and this is why we have launched an initiative that I'm gonna call you to sign up to it if you wish to, is that what we have observed is that it's feasible. It's feasible to bring methane emission to near zero, because the technology is there, it's tested, it's proven, and it works. So there's not anymore a question of technology. It's not even anymore a question of cost, because as we have seen in the slides with the marginal abatement cost curve, the number of solutions are actually coming at a no net cost, and particularly with very high gas price, as we have observed for a few months. The cost to reduce the methane emission when you can reuse the gas, of course it's not always the case, but when you can reuse the gas, could come at a very low price. So it's not a question of technology, it's not a question of cost in many cases, it's mainly a question of will. And we believe that it's also a question of mindset change. So that's why in at CERAWeek last year, so not the one in March 2023, but in March 2022, we get together the member companies of OGCI, and we say, okay, let's change the mindset of the industry, and let's address the methane emission the same way as this industry has proven to be a gold standard when it comes to addressing safety issue, or when it comes to oil spills. And let's talk about methane emission as a gas spills, because it's a gas spills. And once you start to change the narrative, it looks a little bit minimal, but it changed. We know that it changed a lot of the mindset in this industry when they start to look at it from a safety and from a spills angle, because then you deploy the means, you deploy the actions, and you change the way you approach methane emission. It starts to become like a standard practice to get to zero methane emissions. So we launched an initiative that is called Aiming for Zero Methane Emissions. Again, it was drafted and built up with the 12 OGCI member companies initially, but today we have more than 80 companies who have signed up to it. And the idea is really to change this mindset and consider that virtually all methane emission can and should be avoided, and that we should aim for zero. So put all the needs, all the means in place to get as close as possible to zero. It's not ideological neither. It's not saying, you know, every single year you have to be absolute zero. We know that, you know, incident happen. You know, we know as well that you have to maintain the integrity of the operation. And in some cases, methane release are required because of security reasons. But we do believe that if you switch the mindset and if you treat methane emission the same way as the industry has been treating oil spills, for instance, that's going to change a lot in terms of results and in terms of outcome. So today, those are the signatories and the supporters. So you know, I really strongly invite all the people around the phone today to make a jump to the website of the Aiming for Zero. I'm happy to share that in the chat box after I stop talking and take the Q&A. But you can see that we have a number of companies who have signed up to it, and so we'll aim for zero methane emissions in 2030, and a number of supporters as well, because it was important for us to not only get the companies, but also, you know, embark the value chain and show that, you know, companies such as Halliburton or Schlumberger are ready to deploy the right set of technology to support the industry to reach the goal they have signed up to. So probably a number of logos that you can see on this page will look familiar to you. Some of them are startups as well, who are quite engaged on this topic. Some of them are NGOs, and some of them are standard setters, such as MIQ, for instance, that some of you may have heard about. So we do believe that there is quite a very strong, you know, attractiveness to do this initiative, and I'm happy again to exchange with any of you who would have any question about this initiative, because it would be absolutely fantastic if the industry could show up a very coherent and strong message at the COP this year to say, okay, we listen to the Global Methane Pledge. This is the response of the industry. We're going to get as close as possible to zero, and so achieve 2/3 of the Global Methane Pledge just on our own. And I'll stop there, and I'll stop sharing my screen as well, if I manage to do so.
Thank you very much, Julien. It was inspiring because I followed this initiative maybe for 1 year, and a year ago I even didn't know how to pronounce it, and that C stays for climate. And then I started to learn and to see actually what you are doing. I think that it's a great initiative, I mean, especially coming from in a way bottom up, because it's from companies, and companies are knowing what to do with the gas and how to proceed with these methane emissions. I have some questions, but maybe first to open the floor for the participants. So please raise hand, unmute yourself, and let's start with the questions.
So I saw a question from Jonathan who wrote something in the chat, so maybe I can pick that one.
Yes, please, okay, and Jonathan also can maybe elaborate more.
Yep, I'm here, but I think the question, if you could just respond to the question in the chat without me saying anything else.
Yeah, okay, I'll try to at least, Jonathan, and of course tell me if the response is not satisfactory, but you're right. Actually, the main company that is based in Asia that we have is CNPC. Of course, most of the companies that are member of OGCI have a presence in Asia, an operation in Asia, but we don't have Petronas, for instance, as part of the member. There's a couple of reasons, I guess. One is that when we launched OGCI in 2014, the set of criteria that we had to be a member of OGCI was relatively low. You know, we asked the companies to support the Paris Agreement, to have no activity in coal, to engage on decarbonization, to support carbon pricing, these kind of things. But as we progress our journey, we are adding up new criteria on our journey, and of course, becoming a member of OGCI now is a big leap for a number of companies. I'm not saying that those companies could not. Probably they could if they wish, but that may explain why it's difficult for other companies to join OGCI today. The last members that we welcome were in 2018, so it's been 5 years back. But the other aspect as well, and this is mainly because it's a CEO-led organization, so we bring together the 12 CEOs on a quarterly basis. It's already very difficult, to be honest, to find a couple of hours every 3 months in the agenda of 12 CEOs. If we had to do that for more CEOs, it's probably going to be even more a challenge, but it's a consensus-based organization. And so the 12 CEOs of OGCI have to accept to have a new member joining in. We have a number of companies who have knocked on the door, to be honest. But then when they realize what was the level of the level of criteria that they had to sign up to, it was quite high. Some of the CEOs of OGCI companies as well felt that it might be difficult to run an organization on a consensus base with more than 12 companies. But that does not mean that we are a private club not working with the other companies. We do have quite a number of joint partnership or joint work with companies, including Petronas or PTTEP. I was in Thailand 2 weeks back, having like a half-day meeting with PTTEP folks discussing about methane actually. So yeah, even if they are not member, it doesn't mean that they are not necessarily working with us or that we are not working with them as well, and it's a shared learning experience.
Thanks very much, Julien. I think my kind of question was around, a lot of these governments have signed up to the pledge.
Yeah.
And so because a lot of these companies are government companies, it's a little concerning, given that we know that Asia is the place where, in general, oil and gas demand will increase. It's a little concerning that the membership of OGCI kind of looks very US European centric with a couple of others. And so I completely understand your point that it's tough. The scheduling is tough. It's tough for people to sign up new, but it would be good if it could look a little bit more global, if I can put it like that. Thanks very much.
No, that's a fair challenge, Jonathan, and I'm so with you on that. I definitely do believe that the biggest assets that OGCI has in terms of membership are the NOCs, much more than the IOCs, because their journey is probably tougher than for anyone else. And definitely Asia is a very important region, obviously, in terms, as you say, like in terms of dependence on the oil and gas for quite a while. So good challenge. I think we have to find a way to be more inclusive as OGCI, not necessarily having to ask the companies to sign up to every single criteria that the core member of OGCI would have. We were thinking to be completely and sharing with you internal cooking of OGCI, and nothing that has never been done actually. Because we were thinking of having a form of a second row membership for OGCI, so to be a little bit more inclusive and allow companies to join without having to sign up to every single aspect. It's always very difficult because then you open a question about governance and brand and and liabilities, and start to be like a very, very complex issue. But maybe showing up a more inclusive the way that we're partnering with those companies without necessarily having them as members is a good one. Thanks, Jonathan.
Okay, thanks.
So I put on the chat box, by the way, the link to the Aiming for Zero initiative where you can download the text. You will see that the initiative is very easy. I mean, it's very easy. I mean, it's easy to understand. It's easy to sign up to. I'm not saying that it's easy to achieve the goal of the initiative, but at least there's no like administrative burden to go through it. There's no cost. There's no reporting requirements. There's not going to be any overarching body that's going to look over your shoulder to see whether you are implementing it or not. It's just a set of principles that you sign and that you commit yourself basically to implement within your company. It's like the Paris Agreement and the country signing up to it, if you wish. Everybody take its own responsibility when they sign up to this kind of set of principles. But again, keep in mind that we have 80 companies signing up to it today. Technology is there. We are very happy to share more on any specific solution that you feel would be useful for you to get to this near zero. And and think of the size of the prize. I mean, this is absolutely huge compared to any other climate solution. This is achievable. This is in our hands, and this would be absolutely astonishing for the world to see that the oil and gas industry is stepping up and demonstrate actions that will resolve a portion of the climate issue in the next few years.
Thank you for this additional explanation. Actually, I wanted to underline once again, because from presentation I understand that actually joining OGCI as an association, it requires maybe filling more criteria and so on, but to join Aiming to Zero initiative, so it can be by any production company actually.
That's
or
correct.
any for example, I don't know, transmission system operator as well, or you are aiming only on production companies?
No, so depending on where you sit within the value chain, you would have a different set of type of signatory. Either you are a signatory or you're a supporter. It's true that the main target was on the upstream side initially, because this is where we identify quite a lot of methane emission coming in. But now we are definitely very much welcoming the transmission and the distribution, because we do believe as well that those players have a big role to play. So the initiative is really open for anyone. And you're right to say that the Aiming for Zero Methane Emission Initiative is something that we have incubated within OGCI, but we are doing the secretariat of it just because we incubated it. But ultimately, we don't have we don't necessarily want it to remain something that is OGCI, because it could become like seen as private or just for a club of players. We want it to be as inclusive as possible and almost to live its own life. So joining the Aiming for Zero Methane Emission Initiative is just go to the website, look at the text, just have to fill in a form on internet, and then you click on send and you're a member. That's it. And again, no cost, nothing, nothing more than yourself, you committing yourself to achieve those targets. Being a member of OGCI is a different story, because it comes with cost. There's quite a high budget with the contribution to the fund. That we have quite a number of targets now that we've put in place, like on methane, on carbon intensity, and so on, and also adhere to the mechanics and the governance, etc. So the step to go up to the OGCI is a different scale, and also achieving a different objective. The methane emission, the Aiming for Zero Methane Emission Initiative is really laser focused on methane, while OGCI is looking at broadly speaking climate agenda. So yeah, it's two different things.
But then companies joining actually this initiative, okay, they commit themselves and they will go by own speed how to reach zero emissions or near to zero. But then can actually they can count on OGCI kind of maybe knowledge sharing?
Of course.
And
Oh yeah, absolutely. Sorry, that's something that. Thank you, Carolina. I should have insisted much more on that. But yes, definitely. I mean, as I said at the very beginning, OGCI, our purpose, our mission is to be a catalyst for change. So we definitely work with any single players within the industry. We have some members that are funding the initiative and that are directly sponsoring some of the activities that we are doing. But we do, and we really look for deeper engagement with any players within the industry, including on how to address the Aiming for Zero Methane Emission Initiative, how to implement solution. Can we introduce you to some of our, the companies that we have invested in, and some of the technology provider, like the satellite GGSat players that we used in Iraq, or others, or sharing best practices. Actually, you'll see, I mean, for those of you who will have a chance to go to the website that I've put in the chat box, you'll see that there is a resources section where we have also listed other initiatives that could be useful for you, because OGCI is not the only one. We're working on methane. Methane guiding principle, for instance, is another one, or the oil and gas methane partnership. So there's quite a number of, you're not going to be alone in the desert after you've signed up this document. You could definitely pick up the phone, send us an email to anyone, and we'll definitely engage and work with you and see how you can do that and how you can address it. Or even before you sign up, if you have a lot of questions and you don't know and you're hesitating, just let us know. We're very happy to help and to find a way to get you on board, basically.
Thank you for that, because I see few people from Ukraine, actually, from Ukrainian biggest producer, and I believe from some smaller producers as well. I'm happy that they are in the call, and then maybe they are thinking even in those times how to actually approach methane emissions in right now or in future, because anyhow they started already. So please, if you have questions, now it's time, or you can send emails, of course, later on. And actually, I also wanted to ask, and you mentioned already, this communication with all other initiatives in a way which are relevant, and also how actually communication with actually policymakers is going. Jonathan actually mentioned that some of those companies, some of those producers are state-owned companies.
Yeah.
So how all this communication chain and actually even comparison of data actually is going?
Yeah, no, that's a very good question, and I appreciate that in the methane space there is a proliferation of initiative, and sometimes it's easy to get lost. But we worked, I mean, really hands in hands with a number of them. So with the MGP, it's the Methane Guiding Principle, which is one other like flagship initiative getting together the industry, the IEA, World Bank, the UN, and so on. So we finance actually the secretariat of the MGP, but every MGP member is sponsoring some activities as well as some work, like specific dedicated action on flaring or so on. So that's one big initiative. I think the other big initiative that we are interacting with is the Oil and Gas Methane Partnership. So this is the OGMP that some of you may have heard about, which is more about like reporting and how you make accurate reporting of your methane emission and how you demonstrate that you're taking actions. So this initiative is led by the United Nations Environmental Programme. And it's a big one that we are working with on a very collaborative manner. They have launched the IMEO as well, which is the International Methane Emission Observatory, the Methane Action Response System, the MARS system. So there's quite a number of them, but each time we complement each other. It's like the pieces of a puzzle that looks globally speaking the same, but actually each of those initiatives is complementing each other. The aiming for zero is really laser focus on how to change the mindset of the industry, because working with the industry and having worked inside the industry as well in my previous time, I know what it means when a company starts to say zero methane, this is the new policy of the company. We know that at every single Monday morning meeting of the team, there will be a health and safety moment, and there will be a methane moment. And that changed everything, because people get acculturated and look at the topic and saying, okay, I need to reduce methane emission on my day-to-day operation, every single engineer on every single facility. So that's the laser focus of this initiative. When it comes to interaction with the policymaker, so we have some, advocacy. OGCI is not a lobbying group, so we don't lobby any specific government. But what we do is that we define a set of principles that we do believe policymakers should look at when it comes to methane emissions, and we just published that on our website, and anybody could use it, and then we back it with studies and science. On methane emission, what we do welcome is targets. We do think that it makes a lot of sense for policymakers to have a proper goal that they want to achieve on the full value chain, and then segment it depending on whether it's upstream, midstream, or downstream, and have a very clear pathway, like give clarity basically to the industry, so the industry has time to invest, time to reduce, time to adapt, rather than being in a panic mode at the very last minute. So I'm very admirative to know that we have a lot of Ukrainian friends today on the phone, and I think I'm speaking on behalf of everybody that the entire world is thinking about you and what we have gone through in Europe with the gas situation that the invasion of Putin has created has been really revealing to some extent that if we don't anticipate sufficiently well in terms of policy, then you react in a form of a panic, and you don't know exactly where to source your gas, and then you start to source gas where the climate footprint might not be good, etc. So putting in place the right policy environment that gives clarity on where do you want to go as a policymaker in terms of methane intensity is something that we very much welcome, and that we push as well with government. Maybe one point that I could say, Carolina, since you raised the topic, is one initiative that we have worked with, again, with the United Nations, it was called the Global Methane Alliance. So sorry, again, another acronym. It was called GMA, Global Methane Alliance. And the idea was to bring together OGCI as the technical body, the IEA as the scientific body, and the UN as the policy body. The three body were engaging directly some governments. So we went to speak to, again, Indonesia, to Thailand, to I think we went to Angola, if I recall correctly, as well as in Latin America, and trying to identify with the policymaker, with the national companies, what can be done, depending on the region profile, depending on their capacity, depending on the issue they are facing, on the age of the asset, on the age of the basin. Where should they put their money and their efforts? So that's another area where we try to engage. But again, we stop when we start to feel that we are pushing the line of the lobbying, because we don't want to be a lobby group. That's a different, that's a different scope, different goal, and we do believe that it's not a space for us, and it's a bit dangerous space. So yeah.
Okay, thank you for these additional explanations. I mean, it's really many folders to be explored. I just wanted to ask one more question, and this is actually related to this satellite campaign. So if you can tell, I mean, how come that you decided about it? Because there are many satellites around, but you financed your own one, and how come, I mean, of course you started to communicate with companies in Iraq, maybe some of your members have assets there, but how you decide, okay, let's go there, and what is actually the plan, what will be the next country or assets or company?
Yeah, thanks a lot, Carolina. It's true that it's it has been a journey for us to decide on whether or not we would launch this type of initiative, because we didn't want it neither to be the the big brother looking over the shoulder of the players on their own operation. It's always very difficult and challenging for someone to come to knock on your door and say, hey, your zip is open, can you close it? It's a bit difficult position, but we felt that we learned during the journey of OGCI between 2014 and 2021 quite a lot on methane. I mean, we went through like a very strong learning curve, launching those targets, sharing best practices, working with university on understanding where the methane emission could come from, what are the solutions that can really work, investing in technology in parallel, deploying them across assets in different type of scenarios, also doing scientific studies with NGOs to really understand what are the capacity of technology, etc. So during 5 years, we have built up quite a number of, we have acquired quite a lot of capacity, I think, on methane. And then we felt that it was time for us to engage the rest of the industry. And in 2021, we refreshed the strategy of OGCI, asking all the companies of OGCI to sign up to a net zero trajectory on their operation, and also trying to achieve the same on a non-operated domain, as well as expanding their footprint to other players outside of OGCI member companies. And this was the starting point for us to say, okay, how can we help countries or companies that does not necessarily have the same knowledge or not the same capacity to access to the technology, because it's somehow relatively easy when you're living in the US or in Europe to get an access to those kind of technologies, because the technology provider is inside your region, let's say. But when you're living in Africa or in Southeast Asia or Latin America, you don't necessarily have the same access to technology, neither just the awareness that those technologies are available. So we decided to start this program, and then the selection of the country that we picked up with was made on different criteria. As you say, having a member of OGCI having connection with the local players was very important, because it was, again, an exercise where we would collect the data, share it, through a channel that only the local operator would be aware of the issue and OGCI, and then offering some help and say, if you want to resolve it, we can share some knowledge with you, or if you want to resolve it, and you know how to resolve it, that's even better. So that was one criteria. So the presence of the member companies, the cloud coverage, as I mentioned before, satellite works very well in regions where you don't have like a permanent cloud coverage, or most of the year you can see something through. The capacity as well to locate and to have a precise location of the different assets with geographical coordinates was another big criteria. And of course, what we were expecting to be the size of the prize. And we know that in some countries, we were suspecting to have more methane emission than others, also because GGSat, which is the satellite provider that we decided to use, was covering the world for quite a while. I mean, they observe all the time. The last decision criteria to some extent is that Iraq is a relatively difficult country to get an access to. And so we are thinking that if it works in Iraq, it's going to work in many places. And so we started with quite a difficult one, because we wanted it to be something that we can feel confident that we could expand to other regions. And after that, once we've decided what we wanted to do, we just launched the tender process. We didn't want it necessarily to pick up immediately GGSat as a provider. There's multiple satellite provider, you're right, around the world, but we wanted to run like an independent tender process to make sure that we pick up the right service provider. And it happens that within the satellite world, GGSat was offering what we were looking for in terms of detection threshold. They have the lowest in the market at 100 kilograms per hour, approximately, compared to others which are more in multiple hundred or thousands. And also they have a pixel, so the capacity to locate where so the combination of those made up that it was quite obvious for us to work with them, and that we started the journey. And we also used one partner that I didn't mention, and I should have, as part of this program, was Carbon Limits, because it was important for us as well to have a third party to have the capacity as well to engage locally and to deconstruct the data, to be able to have trainings with the local players, to facilitate a little bit the connection and have a little bit more independence when it comes to the engagement phase. So there was this program was run with, I mean, OGCI was financing it, but it was really, a co-leadership between GGSat, OGCI, and Carbon Limits. The three bodies together made it happen.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I put a lot of questions, but a lot of details to be explained. Unfortunately, not so very, let's say, talkative participants, but I believe that they were listening carefully. We will put slides on our website. We will also put the records of today's webinar. And with this, I only can thank you very, very much for all provided details. And please feel free to contact either Julien or OGCI secretariat, and then we can guide you further on. We will continue with Methane Mondays. For this year, we still have a few topics in pipe. So the next one will be financing and technical assistance supporting of to the projects. And then we have a roundtable on transparency. Then we will have more about LNG emissions. And yeah, let's see, waiting for regulation in European Union to be approved, and then we will have more more topics. So with that, I would like to thank OGCI once again, and Julien particularly. Thank you to all of you being present, and see you soon. Let's put it in that way.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.